Good evening. Tonight I want to talk about tradition. We all have family traditions. My family always ate oyster stew on Christmas morning. I couldn't stand it. I thought it was disgusting until I grew up, and now I actually love it. We went to church every Sunday for the most part. We went to a very traditional Protestant church in a beautiful stone building. We traveled out west every so many years from Virginia to California because my dad, his relatives were scattered across the Midwest and the West. Another tradition, we never flew as a family. I'm not sure how popular flying was in the 70s and 80s, but I never flew until I was 20. So those are just a few of the traditions, if you will, in our family. And then you have your faith traditions. If you are a Christian, you grew up in one of the Protestant denominations, or perhaps you were Roman Catholic or Eastern Orthodox. And so in each church, they would have, like in the Anglican tradition, for the morning worship and the evening worship, this is the typical garb. And you wonder, why would you wear that? Why would they wear that? Well, I want to share just a little bit of the purpose and the reason that Anglicans, for the morning and evening worship, it's called the daily office. As you've been if you've joined me before, we have a time of confession of sin, the Lord's Prayer, glorifying God. We also read Scripture. There's a sermon, the Apostles' Creed, and then there's fairly lengthy prayers at the end. So I want to share with you Anglican liturgical dress for the morning and evening prayer service. It typically consists of a cassock, which is a black robe that goes underneath this. Well, first you've got a shirt, like a clerical shirt. Then underneath this white robe, which is called a surplice, I'm going to get to that in a minute, there's what's called a cassock. The cassock is an ankle-length garment, and it symbolizes the minister's commitment to his vocation, death to the world, and a life dedicated to service. That's why you often see clergy with the black clerical collar on and then the black cassock. Okay, so what is this white robe over the cassock? What is this? What does that symbolize? The white robe is called a surplice. It's a loose white garment, and it signifies the righteousness of Christ and the purity of ministry. So that's the white you see when we come back at the second coming of Christ. The church is wearing white. Okay, so white symbolizes the righteousness of Christ. Okay, so this, you haven't seen me wear this before. I just ordered this recently. It's called a tippet. A tippet. So what is a tippet? Obviously it's black. It looks like a stole. It's worn around the neck. This has a representation of the preaching and teaching office of the minister, rather than the sacramental priestly authority indicated in the Roman Catholic tradition. So in the Anglican tradition, they would wear the black tippet to represent the preaching and teaching office of the pastor. Now, when there's communion or some other more formal service other than the morning and evening service, then there typically will be like a chasuble. They're different colors. They could be green or red or white or purple, symbolizing the different seasons of the church year. So Anglicans and other Christians, unlike some churches that just, the pastor's wearing a suit, or he's wearing a black t-shirt or a white t-shirt or skinny jeans or whatever in a more informal service, Anglicans and other Christian traditions like to use color and imagery as symbolism. And so the reason you'll find Anglican and Episcopal priests wearing these types of garments is it's part of an ancient tradition that goes back to the Middle Ages. So a little more about this. Okay, so then there's the academic hood, often worn with the tippet to represent academic qualifications. So in a typical morning or evening worship service, reading the scriptures, the daily office, what we're talking about, the pastor will wear his hood from his academic achievements, just to show that he studied, that he, like Paul says, study to show yourself approved, a workman who needs not be ashamed. Okay, so you may wonder, why the clergy, why would they even bother wearing robes? What's the purpose of that? Are they just trying to impress people? Are they trying to make themselves in a higher status than others? Well, it's actually, the original intention was the exact opposite of that. The attire was to cover the personal clothing of the pastor. It was to de-emphasize the individual's personality, focusing attention on the worship itself. So whenever you went into an Anglican church in England, each priest or pastor or presbyter would be wearing the same outfit for the daily office, for the worship service, and so it wouldn't be anything unusual. Have you ever gone to a church and the pastor's wearing like a $1,000 suit, or you can just tell he's got Gucci on or whatever, and it's kind of a distraction, because you're like, wow, or their clothing doesn't match. The tie doesn't match the shirt or the jacket or whatever. So this is to provide continuity across each different church. So if you go into an Anglican church, every time it's going to be the same. Pastor is going to be wearing similar dress. So it's something you can you get used to, and it de-emphasizes the individual's personality so that you're there to focus on worship. Now, when it's over, right, the clergy can just break out their paisley shirt or whatever, but during worship, this is part of the reason they wear the uniform. Sorry about my throat. It seems like every time I come up here to do one of these services, I cough. I don't know why. Okay, then another reason for the liturgical garments is historical continuity. What does that mean? It links modern Anglican worship to centuries of tradition. So it's carrying on tradition. And every faith, whether it's within the Christian world, whether it's Baptist, whether it's Lutheran, whether it's Presbyterian or Methodist, each one of these traditions has a different outfit. In the early days, many Baptist pastors in certain portions of the South would wear black robes. The black robe represented the preaching ministry of the word, which is very central in Baptist churches. And then one final point, order and authority. It visually signifies the ordained office or the licensed lay ministry of the person leading the service. So when you see a tippet that goes straight down like this, this represents Anglican ordination. If it's a deacon, what you'll see is this will be tied, and it will one section will go across the body like that, symbolizing that this person is ordained a deacon. So people, when they go into the church, if they don't know who the pastor is and who the deacons are, the dress will give it away. Does this make sense? So if you ever say, well, it's not needed, well, it's important, and it's not absolutely necessary, but let's be honest, in the modern church today, is all this visual imagery that we see up front necessary? No, it's not. And many things that the evangelical church does today to enhance its worship is really what the ancient Christians, the Anglicans and others, did to enhance their own worship. So I hope that's been helpful for you. It's part of the tradition that goes back a long time. If one quick point as well, you may say, well, what about Jesus and the early apostles? So here we find that in the Old Testament, you had priests, and they did wear priestly garments in their ministry. Okay, so they also wore them in the synagogue. Now, what happened when Christianity was first introduced through Jesus Christ, basically what happened, there was great persecution. So for the first 300 years of the church's life, they were persecuted. So they had to go underground, essentially. So what happened when Constantine legalized Christianity and it became the religion of the empire, Christians were free to have worship, public worship. As the church grew, it went into basilicas, and so the pageantry came about as a result of being able to be free in worship. So we could say that the reason that the first Christians didn't necessarily wear liturgical garments partly was because they were in hiding. But in the Old Testament, the priests wore priestly garments. You can read about that in the Old Testament. In the book of Exodus, Bezalel was an Old Testament artist who not only beautified the tabernacle and the tent of meeting, and you could say that led to ultimately to the beautification or the artistry in the temple, but he also took part in preparing the priestly garments that were symbolic of the worship in Israel. So again, it would pick up later, partly because of the persecution of the first church. And it's a tradition that has carried on with great meaning. So I hope that's been helpful to you, whether it's something you're into or not, but hopefully I've helped explain just a bit of it to you. So if you ever see people dressed up in robes and things like that, you'll have a better understanding of why they do it. Okay, thanks a lot. Next, I'm going to do our evening daily office, which will be about 35-40 minutes. So I hope you'll join me. And thanks for being with me tonight. God bless you.